Need to come up with some lead-in music for this one too, Rich.
I know. Yeah, we totally should. Good afternoon, everyone. Rich Swerbinsky with the Mortgage Collaborative here once again with the Last Week in Mortgage Today, our weekly whirlwind through all the latest news happenings in the residential lending industry. Each week, I am joined by one of our lender members as my co-host, and this week in the co-pilot seat, once again, the CEO of Eustis Mortgage, huge New Orleans Saints fan, loving her team after their big Week 3 win, Kate deKay. Kate, good to see you.
Hey, Rich, always good to be here. I feel like it was me not watching the Saints game last week that must have ruined it for them, because this weekend we were back on track.
Yeah, for those that weren't there, Kate's a huge Saints fan, and we saddled her with a board. She's on our board of directors. The board meeting was during the Saints game and the Browns game in Tierney a couple weeks ago. And then she had a session she had to lead that was like during the end of the Saints game, and they got beat by the Panthers, and she's blaming TMC. So yeah, we'll take it. We'll take the blame. So
I think I would have rather be there. It wasn't a home game or anything, so we're all good.
And it was a great conference. And as always, we're going to go through some of the news headlines here as we do each week. But I really want to get inside your brain as to some of the takeaways of that conference last week, because it was a gathering of a lot of great leaders of mortgage companies and financial institutions across America, like yourself, and just there was so much great discussion and interaction and so much to dig into there that I think our listeners will get even more value out of than the news headlines. So we'll quickly go through the headlines this week, if that's cool with you.
Okay, cool.
All right, so let's get right into it. And as always, for our attendees, any questions, comments, anything you want to add to the program, please don't hesitate to do so through the chat or the Q&A, and we'll incorporate it into the show. Kate, the news headlines, we're kind of at the top of the headlines right now. The Senate is getting set to advance President Biden's pick for director of the CFPB, Rohit Chopra, to the Senate floor for a confirmation vote. We've had a lot of appointments and confirmations from the Biden administration that have been viewed very positively by the residential lending industry. This one, maybe not much as so. They tried to put it through for confirmation like 6 months ago. It immediately got 50-50, right down party lines, all 50 Republicans voting against it. The nominee, Rohit Chopra, is a well thought of guy. He's been at CFPB for a while. He's kind of been the student loan watchdog. But I think what makes people nervous, and the Senate Banking Committee ranking Republican member Pat Toomey's already come out and made these comments publicly, is he's been kind of seen as anti-business. He's like the best buddy of Elizabeth Warren, who, not to get political, and we're not going to do that in the show, but the derailment of her presidential campaign was largely tied to her being viewed as completely anti-business. So the mortgage industry made up of a lot of people like you that run small to medium-sized businesses. So maybe some of the trepidation there, but so we'll see how this goes. It should be interesting to see. I can't see any Republicans voting for him, but we'll see how it all plays out. Any thoughts on Rohit Chopra?
Yeah, anytime I see overzealous in the description of someone, I'm not really for them getting put into a role that regulates our industry. So, as always, we'll see how it plays out. What can we do if it moves forward in a direction that's not positive for us? Of course, be thankful for a lot of the positives we've seen lately. And then I think with the change in administration, we all knew that we were going to have to step back up on our game for monitoring regulatory compliance. And so I think everybody's just reminding themselves each week that they need to get back into going through all of our policies and procedures around regulatory compliance and making sure we're on the up and up.
Yeah, great point. And I heard a lot of that talk at our conference last week. And to be fair, the interim director right now, Dave Uiho, we're getting the same type of approach where you're right. The term overzealous and regulator, not great to see next to one another, but we'll see what happens there. On the other side of things, Democrats proposed a 20-year mortgage for first-generation home buyers through the LIFT Act, would create a program through HUD to sponsor low fixed rate, 20-year fixed rate mortgages that I believe are like amortized. The payment is amortized over like the 30-year payment. So one of a lot of different affordable housing related initiatives that we've seen proposed. It's just a proposal. Any thoughts on that news item this week?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's so much legislation out there trying to spur first time home ownership, which is great, but it's also demonstrative too. It seems like, why are we putting out so many? Can't we pick one, figure out how to kind of perfect it and move it forward? So now we have three. We'll kind of see which one wins, or if they will try to combine a few of them. This one's definitely interesting. I think you see with kind of all of them, it's not only first time home ownership, but first generation home ownership, which this one pulls in as well. The focus here is trying to build wealth, which I find interesting, with the terms that they're putting in place. It's a 20-year, but amortizes it, or, a payment closer to a 30-year. And they're basically saying the Department of Treasury will subsidize it to get there. And it's a great way for folks to build equity. So it's certainly an interesting proposed legislation. Which one's going to be the one that comes out in the final say? And then also, I feel like we keep forgetting and aren't concentrating on affordable housing. And to me, that has to come before any of this, because you can put this out, but if there's not affordable housing to back it up, then we're not making the efforts and able to implement what is intended.
Yeah, great point. And I think I saw, not even in our show notes, but Moody's just came out with some kind of report on just rising rents, research that they had done recently. Not surprisingly, right? There's no affordable housing out there for first-time home buyers to buy. So those people are renters now, and there's just so much rent demand because there's no affordable homes to buy. So not surprisingly, we're starting to see a lot of statistics now start to pop up. Rents are rising.
Right.
So, like to your point, this affordable housing issue, there's been a lot of talk about, affordable housing, raise funding for these goals. If you have no affordable homes for people to buy, nobody's hitting any of their goals. And we're not going to address this very serious problem in America. So not an easy issue to tackle or solve, but one that I think lawmakers need to get collaborating around.
For sure. It needs to be the forefront of the conversation versus all these other things that we're talking about ahead of it.
Totally agree. We got another round of new and existing home sale data from the month of August. Both came in pretty close to expectations. New home sales were up about 1.5%. Existing home sales were down a little less than 2% month over month from July to August. Probably most notable from the report, from the new home sales report, is we're now up to allegedly a 6-month supply of homes in America, which is by no means healthy, but compared to the 2 and 3 month stuff that we saw in the spring, it's at least hopefully a sign that we're headed in the right direction. I personally believe the demand out there is still so much stronger than any potential supply pickups that we're never going to get past this 6-7 month of inventory level. But what are you seeing in your markets? Your thoughts on just the whole inventory issue right now?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's still an inventory problem. I did like that the August numbers were up, because I know historically kind of August is trends down. So I liked kind of having an idea that there may be some momentum going into the fall to see some positive trends in that direction. But with kind of the news earlier regarding the Fed tapering mortgage-backed securities in 2022, I think we're also going to start seeing the rate rise that we've been kind of anticipating over these months. I think we're finally going to start seeing that as well. So, guess it's always a guessing game in our industry trying to forecast these things out. I don't think any of us could forecast the last 2 years of our lives in this world.
Right, exactly. Every time I think I know where things are going, it seems to go the exact opposite direction. It's so hard to predict this industry. But yeah, to your point, I mean, the Fed's really starting to up their rhetoric around tapering. And, I just think that, we are going to see higher rates at some point, which is just going to exacerbate the affordable housing and affordability issue in general. So a lot for leaders. Some of the new leaders have been appointed, some of the new housing leaders to tackle. And a good segue into one of those leaders that you were nice enough to interview for us. So Kate is on our board of directors at the Mortgage Collaborative and one of our earliest members. And we were lucky enough to have new interim for now, although little birdies are chirping in my ear that she's could be getting the permanent appointment, which we would all love, I think, after hearing her speak. But interim FHFA director, Sandra Thompson, who joined us virtually last week in Terranea. And Kate, you had a chance to interview her, and everybody was so impressed by her, just her handle on the issues that are most pertinent to our country, the housing finance tentacles to those issues, and just her really forthrightness and the genuineness at which she answered all the questions. But I'll just start with your general takeaway from your interview and conversation with FHFA Director Sandra Thompson last week.
Yeah, I thought she was great. A kind of fresh breath of fresh air compared to what we've been seeing. And, as we knew going into the interview, we've had, so many things that were overturned that were put in place by previous administration. So just her, our initial take on her is of course fabulous because of that, but then getting to hear her speak and kind of talk about what she's looking at in the future, I felt like she had a much more common sense approach with not a lot of agenda behind it. So more just truly what is going to be the best for the consumer and the industry as a combination, and not just a specific agenda. So really, I thought that was great. She had a specific comment that really stuck out to me that focused on AUS versus the PSPA and the 3% caps on those specific property types. She mentioned something about AUS, and I think just that in general, her understanding and knowledge across the board of how we do loans, being able to talk about an AUS and utilizing that, it gives me hope that maybe during the discovery phase, they push more towards adjusting their risk model in an AUS for second home and investment properties, and then maybe get rid of the PSPAs altogether. So I just thought, and she has a lot of discussions about affordable housing and kind of approaches that they're using there. I thought she was great.
Yeah, I thought she was great. And I like that comment as well, because I think that's what a lot of us in the industry said when they unleashed these amendments to the preferred stock purchase agreement. They had these blanket sweeping, same for all mortgage lenders across America, major changes to the amount of non-owner occupied properties you could sell and other things that will never be implemented now. And yeah, she kind of had the common sense approach, like we can kind of tweak things through automated underwriting systems, as opposed to it felt to me like somebody that understood the real issues and how to make real change, as opposed to somebody that was like Washington speak and and talking points.
One goal to privatize, and anything they had to do to get there would be done versus what we have now. So that's great.
This is the last week in Mortgage Today. I'm Rich Swerbinski with the Mortgage Collaborative, joined this week in the co-host seat by Eustace Mortgage CEO Kate deKay. We just went through the news headlines and now are just kind of going through some of the top takeaways from last week's TMC lender member conference at Terranea. The venture capital guys that we had on Tuesday morning, to me, were very interesting as well. We brought on a panel of 4, private equity / venture capital people that represented fintech focused firms that all had made mortgage investments, that were watchers of the mortgage industry from afar. And it was very interesting to me to get their kind of cold, calculated, just as a pure investment view of the industry that we live and breathe all day, and one of the comments that really stood out to me was our moderator asked, like, if you were the CEO of a mortgage company like you are, Kate, right now, like, what would your message be to them? And the one guy was like, I would like pretend you're like the CEO of Macy's in 2015, because that's the way that they really feel the mortgage industry is going, to where if you are not really just quick and fast and everything the customer wants immediately, the same way Amazon or Shopify is, then you're really going to find yourself in a tough spot. Your thoughts on the venture capital guys and their view of the mortgage industry?
I think to an extent, I can agree, especially when it's consumer facing. I think we talk a lot about, bots and RPAs and this and that and the other. And I think you- the stats are always going to show us that people do want their handheld still. And it's in particular, even still for millennials. And so the people that are coming up, it's not like it's a different model for one age generation versus the other. The millennials still really do want their handheld held as well. So while I certainly think that there has to be ability to get to people quickly, I think the direction of, you're building a bot that's going to talk to someone and answer all their questions, at some point they want a real human. So I think there's definitely got to be some sort of conglomerate of what that looks like. But the key being access to it quickly, because if you think about, our kids today and you talk about Macy's, it's like, the Blockbuster comment, it's really anything, because we have Uber Eats and anything is accessible at your fingertips at any point in time. You don't, we had the storm Ida here recently, and we have no power, we have basically nothing happening at our house, and my 12-year-old says, well, why don't we just order Uber Eats or Postmates? Like, I don't think you understand that that's not how it works. So that they don't realize when you can just grab your iPad and find any movie that you want. They don't realize that things aren't accessible that quickly. So I certainly agree to that point where it's kind of like a Macy's. You need the consumer to be able to gain access to information and basically get responses very quickly. But I do think there's some sort of conglomerate version of that.
Did have a question come in. How concerned or do you anticipate any disruption if Congress does not address the looming debt ceiling? I think the immediate, I think there would be violent market reactions, not only stock market, but bond market, which fuels mortgage rates. So Dave Mueller, I know you're a very good cap markets guy, like hedge your positions going into that, just because, ultimately I think especially Biden's got a lot going on right now. They got to get that figured out. The debt ceiling thing, I mean, there'd be violent market reaction one way or another. Kate, any thoughts on the looming debt ceiling and impact our industry?
I agree. I think it's just a market reaction, and then what that does to rates and our hedge and margin calls and all those fun conversations when they come up. But I don't how much it affects us outside of that. I think that's it.
All you cap markets people out there, hedge your positions just in case. So, Kate, getting back to the conference and some of the top takeaways, another sense I just got was, lenders, and you guys are a very tech forward company, and so may not be in this position, but I just felt like there was a lot of lenders that, were so damn busy last year. It was just survive 2020. 21 started off busier than anybody thought. The first quarter was busy. Maybe some anticipated getting back to business planning in the first quarter. That kind of got delayed the spring and summer. I just talked to so many lenders that had spent a lot of time these last 3, 4, 5 months examining tech and systems and platforms and channels and strategies. And I just felt like a lot of leaders were at the culmination point of a lot of those decisions, that either just made decisions on new tech providers or platforms or channel strategies. Would that be a fair assessment from your interactions with our lenders?
Completely. I think, everybody put anything on hold for the most part, trying to just focus on volume and getting through what we could with all the changes that were occurring these past basically almost 2 years at this point. So now it's really back into the tech game. And I think just attending conferences like the one we just had, you realize how much more there is and how much we need to be keeping up with it. On the flip side, when you talk about like eClose, okay, well, we still haven't done eClose. eClose was supposed to be like our biggest tech, it's not truly blockchain, but some portion of blockchain that we experience, and we're still not there. So I try not to get too hung up on, oh my gosh, it's going to, this is going to happen next year. We're going to be behind, we're still a mid-sized company. So you can't just do every technology feature that exists in the world and it makes sense for you. So I definitely don't see some people's points of, that we're going to be this Amazon world or we're going to have to take that direction. I think there's going to be a happy medium, and we're, as an industry, we've been so slow to roll things out. that I think we'll probably just see a more regular speed now, because with COVID, we've kind of had to make adjustments, and we know what we want the mortgage world to look like. Now it's just getting us there. So I certainly think it's going to be speedier than eClose was. And we still can't truly implement a full eClose in most states, but that's a whole different conversation. So I think it's coming, and it will be speedy, but a realistic pace that we don't need to panic as IMBs or people in this industry that it's all of a sudden going to be around the corner.
Right. Like, yeah, you're like, if you don't have every tech platform you want implemented by end of the year, it's over. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, you're out of business.
But I think lenders are, just because it has been so busy the last year. Lenders are very focused on the future. I think all great leaders like yourself are always focused on the future. But last year was a tough year to be focused on anything but the present. And it feels like there's more of that feel now. So to that point, another thing I heard a lot was just last year was such a tough year just because it got so busy. Like the I guess pain and the minutia of hiring and training and firing, it was all remote. A lot of companies had not been remote before, but I think I heard a lot of lenders too that long for the day where they can even out some of the up and down pain of the cyclical nature of our industry operationally. Like, oh, I'm overstaffed, or oh my God, I got to hire just anybody that can fog a mirror because we need to close loans. And now we have too many people. I think that, what I heard from some lenders was technology is part of that solution. It's not going to replace humans anytime soon, but I think it can help streamline the needed human capital, that cross-training employees and, other strategies that, I think lenders were employing bots, you mentioned, to do tasks that, don't have to be done by humans. Maybe, hiring some younger people and training your own, maybe thinking that you have a less attrition and a lower cost basis of employees. So how do you view just mortgage operations in general from October 2021 forward?
I think it's certainly a frustrating part of our business, being as cyclical as it is, and making sure you're staffed correctly, where you don't have to have the, reductions in forces and these things. I mean, I always build our company and those around me are the same in a way that the last thing we want to do is a reduction in force. So what can we do to work with this additional volume that we don't necessarily need to add anyone, so that once it levels back out, we're right in the position that we need to be. Of course, we had people to add last year because we grew as a company organically as well, not just, all the refis and all the normal things that we were dealing with. We had internal growth as well with retail loan officers. So, staffing up to appropriately offset those. I know a lot of people are still using, talking about the outsourcing of, underwriting or processing. We have some companies within the mortgage collaborative that, I've heard things about utilizing MI companies to try not to have kind of the ups and downs across at least underwriting, but that still leaves a ton of other departments. But again, I think personally, because training your own is great for retention, but it doesn't help when you're having a high and then you still have to get back to your kind of break even spots. So I definitely think kind of building those RPAs that people are working more efficiently and able to do more in their job helps those swings.
Evening out the peaks and valleys. That was the what I was trying to get at. You said it much more succinctly, but yeah, I think that general feeling amongst leaders, and a good segue into a question we just had come in the chat for Kate. Outside of e-closings, what other areas can you recommend for small and medium-sized lenders to target in terms of innovative tech in mortgage lending? You just mentioned RPAs. Expound on that, or any other thoughts on
I would
things
say
small to medium-sized lenders should explore on the tech side?
Yeah. So RPAs, of course, if you haven't already moved into some sort of platform that's like a data mining on your existing database, giving you information on your existing database and even predictive information on your existing database. I think that's a big one. As I mentioned, RPAs, those are the two that we're certainly focused on.
And yeah, that's a good point. And something else I wanted to touch on that I heard a lot about was just use of actionable intel and data. Far more lenders implementing data in different ways outside of data, like how many loans did we close this month, and how many units per what processor, underwriter. But a lot of companies out there, Model Match and MGIC is doing some really cool things with their lender landscape product, and iEmerge, and we've got some partners with some really cool things where, these data mining sources where you can go into any county in America and see, like, hey, Rocket Mortgage closed, 180 of the 350 loans in that county last month, and Eustis Mortgage closed 70, and ABC Mortgage closed 40, and it was these loan originators, it was these realtors that referred it, and this was the demographics of the borrowers on the loan. So a lot of talk about companies using data like that to help chart growth strategies, to help diversify their customer base. For you hit on it at the beginning of the show, just in terms of preparing your company for a new kind of refanged CFPB and all the fair lending tentacles that are going to come with that. But talk a little bit about just use of actionable data and intel.
Yeah, so 100%. Basically, all the tools that we have that we could in that direction, outside of really utilizing those tools and then building kind of an ROI to understand the ROI on it. That's the piece that we still need to do. Utilizing MGIC's platform, particularly our loan officers, they're really looking at their individual markets, and we're working with them to create game plans on what they're seeing. That's great for MGIC's product. Then we've signed up with Model Match, which I know has also started working with the Mortgage Collaborative, which I think is great. That's more on the recruiting front. And again, you can get very specific on what you're looking for, what market you want to grow in, what volume are you looking for in a loan officer? Those are great tools to help build your company. Then on the flip side, you're looking at the next level, which is your actual database of clients and how kind of you're tracking them and following up with them, and what campaigns are you putting them on based off of, this action that they're taking. So finding the tools that, like a Sales Boomerang, and I know Sales Boomerang is working on some more predictive than they are right now, features. So just utilizing those tools, I think, is extremely important for IMBs. I see it, the results specifically for our company. I know I mentioned ROI, and building ROI on technology is always a struggle for me, and exactly how to do that. But our company's been around for 65 years, and we've had refi booms in the past. Again, we've never seen, what we did these last 2 years, but there have been refi booms in our past 65 years. The most we ever were 15%, 10% refi, and that's in a boom. Whereas this last year, we were 50% refi. So you can see the tools we're using are paying off. And, those years ago, sure, we had CRMs, we sent out postcards, or we did this, that, and the other. So there was some sort of touch. But I think the, combination CRM, analytics on customers, and communicating based off of that information is extremely important, and part of the reason why we were able to retain a lot of our refinance clients as well.
It's awesome. Somebody that works for a company that, looks to embolden small to medium-sized mortgage lenders. So great to hear you say that. I heard other lenders say the same. We're just retaining more customers through being smart and proactive, using great customer retention tools and vendors, and big part of the success that companies like Eustis Mortgage had last year. And it's great to hear those results. So this is the last week in Mortgage Today. I'm Rich Swerbinsky with the Mortgage Collaborative. Just have a minute or so left with Eustis Mortgage CEO, Kate deKay. Kate, cybersecurity has been kind of a building issue at our conferences in the general vernacular amongst our members.
Yes.
You know, had some specific members that gave like firsthand accounts of phishing attacks and other things they've been a part of. It just felt like, you know, especially with all the transactions that have been done the last year and a half, all the customer data that mortgage lenders are sitting on, you know, again, a more top of mind issue for leaders like yourself right now. No.
For sure. And I know you're aware, in our collab group, we had, you know, in the actual collab sessions, we had someone that this was happening to, like during the session. So, you know, as it's all happening, I'm messaging IT, make sure they've put in place some of the things that we've been talking about doing. Did we actually do it? Because, you know, you start to panic in those situations. You know, big takeaways for me on cyber. We have a lot of push, and we've had this push. So we really don't have anything much on our servers, is utilizing web-based platforms so that our users are just clicking on a website and working through their systems. Of course, your vendor management policies and what you're checking on those web-based systems has to be a little bit elevated, but trying to get kind of anything that's was hosted internally off of us. So if we were hacked in a way that they were trying to shut down our systems, it wouldn't really affect us. You know, maybe we couldn't get to our data warehouse for a couple of days because that's where it's being pushed through, but nothing that's going to affect our business functioning on a day-to-day basis. The other one was basically making sure we're not pushing socials anywhere. So, you know, obviously they're housed in our LOS, but making sure we're not pushing them to A and B, for example, or accounting software, making sure they're not going to the data warehouse, and that they're stored nowhere on our internal servers or any servers that we have in the cloud. A big one that we thought about as kind of the years progressed, and what we've determined is trying to get all private consumer data off of our servers as well. And one of the big ones that we realized that we are holding onto is 1098s, and the borrower's socials are on 1098s. So just kind of going through each department and seeing, okay, where are you storing personal information for customers? What is it? And how do we get it off? Or, you know, basically unplug, have it on our server for a few days when we're completing the task, and then like unplugging that server so it's not accessible.
That's great insight. Yeah, I mean, as a business owner, it's something that, you know, looming beneath the surface, but that could be something incredibly damaging to the company if you don't have your, or you're not on top of it like you are. So, but Kate, thank you as always for once again co-hosting the Last Week in Mortgage Today. And my barking dogs are, they must know it's 2:33 Eastern. So we have
Kids will be there soon.
Thank you once again. It was great seeing you last week. Thank you for all you did at conference. Good luck to your Saints this weekend, and to our attendees. Thank you very much for taking half an hour, 33 minutes actually this week out of your week with us. And we are here every Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, for the Last Week in Mortgage Today. Until then, have a great rest of the week, everyone.
Have a great one, everybody.
Bye, Kate.